How to Get a College Football Scholarship, a series where we evaluate active high school football players. We break down their game film, and at the end, we reveal what level they have the best chance of earning a scholarship in, and most importantly, what they need to do to get to the next level. And joining me today is our head coach here at Next Play, who has 15 years of Division One recruiting experience, Brian Overton. So, Brian, who do we got today? Share with us who we are evaluating.
So we got another relatively young player, as you can see there, 2027, two-way guy.
Okay.
So those are always interesting to talk about. Brings up a lot of topics and talking points when you got a two-way guy. So he's a wide receiver DB. I got him at about 5'8", 5'9", 170, maybe 75 off the tape. Interesting player. We'll just jump right into it here and let it play. I got a 2-minute highlight, so not terrible long, which is fine again for a 27. Nothing at all wrong with that. So you can see him here in the slot. He makes some plays in the slot. You'll see later on in the tape, he'll catch it outside. He's got a big catch radius. He'll make some plays outside of the catch zone. He obviously plays DB, like a nickel type position. I do like the passion he plays with.
Okay.
As you can see, he was fired up for that hit right there.
A little
Good little
dog in
whip
him.
route down there in the little whip route down in the end zone there. I think that's his niche, right? And that's his niche is playing that. I love this right here. He got the what knocked out of him, got up and just told the guy to come on back and bring it again the next play, I think. So I like this kid's toughness. Here's a play here where he makes a really good catch on the sideline.
Okay.
So he's an intriguing two-way guy, and I'll get into it in a second what I think, he is. But he does show he shows enough, I think, on both sides of the ball, depending on, again, scheme fit and, what he likes. That factors in just as much as anything, guys, for everybody listening. A lot of times it matters, like, what they enjoy playing the most, you know what I mean? Because typically they're going to work that harder. So we always try to find that out when we start working with guys that are two-way guys. We really try to find out what they like, playing the most, and so we can kind of, if we need to concentrate on that a little more, like in their training and things like that, to help them move the recruiting needle, we do. So that always factors in when you're talking about a two-way player. And then I think this is great, just showing some return ability. And sometimes, you put returns on there and people will say, well, it was a 20-yard return, it wasn't a touchdown, it wasn't this, it wasn't that. And they'll say all those things, but then, they've never been on the other side of it, i.e. coaching or in a program where, you get into training camp and you're working on kickoff for the first time. You could put 5 guys back there and all 5 of them, it hit them in the face mask and it bounced out of bounds, or it hit them in the chest and they dropped it, this, that, and other.
Right.
And sometimes it's a struggle to find somebody to catch the ball. Like catching kicks in college and punts is
Fun.
totally different than high school. So if and you know that all too well. So when you get a guy that at least has done it in high school, you know what I mean, he's a lot more comfortable, you know what I mean? And that's why special teams guys, when they see returners on there, now does it matter if you're like explosive and can make big plays? Yes. But I say this all the time, and I use this kid as an example, and I'm just saying this because of this kid, and then we'll get back into his tape. But Justin Hardy played for me at East Carolina. He's the second all-time leading pass catcher in the history of college football, right? He was our punt returner. Well, Lincoln Riley was our offensive coordinator. Well, he was the youngest offensive coordinator in college football. Obviously, he's the head coach at USC now. He's a big-time offensive guru. Well, we never wanted to take a chance on giving the ball back to the team by like fumbling it or something like that on a punt, or anything like that. So what we do? We put our best pass catcher back there to catch the punt because he could naturally catch it, and he fair caught every one of them.
Yep.
Every one of them.
Yeah.
Because we just wanted the ball back,
Yeah.
right?
Which, you know what? I just
You know
have one
why?
like it. Why? Go ahead. Sorry.
Because he had done it 100 times in high school, and he was so comfortable doing it right out of the gate. He did that from his freshman year on,
Yeah.
right? And he was natural. He was a natural punt catcher, right? And he had great hands, obviously, because he broke records at receiver. But the original reason we put him back there because he was the most comfortable just catching it. And people lose sight of that in college ball a lot. They're like, why do they have this guy back there? He may be the best guy that gives them a chance to catch the ball and actually get the ball back without dropping it, turning it over, making a bad decision, things like that. So not to get on a whole special teams rant, but that matters.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I remember a school that we played one time where they were just a much better team, and they just whenever it came to punt return, they just didn't even put a returner back there. They were just like, screw it,
Yeah,
just let the ball go. It's not worth the risk because they didn't have
yeah,
a. So you're right. It is
and
it is a really hard skill, and it's a critical one that a lot of times, even actually, you know what? When I was at Ole Miss, I'm not going to say his name because he was a great punt returner, but one game he fumbled like 3 punts. And so they ended up
yeah.
just putting just a guy that would just fair catch it. And then the whole crowd
And
like
and
erupted
why did they pick that guy? Why did they pick that guy to put in there?
because they just knew
Because
he was going to fair
they
catch
knew he
it.
was going to catch it.
Yeah, guaranteed catch it. But the
Because
person
they
that kept
felt really
fumbling
good
went.
about him not fumbling it.
What's funny is the guy that went to kept fumbling the punt. It was just a weird game. It was just an off game for the guy.
Yeah.
He ended up having some huge NFL punt returns for touchdowns you've seen on highlights
Oh, I bet.
before. So I'm
I
not gonna
bet.
say his name.
But that's a great example. That's a
Yeah,
great example to what I'm talking about, though, because that kid, whoever they put in there after him, had value because they thought he could catch it.
yeah,
That's why they put him in there.
yeah.
That's why he was standing over there beside the special teams coach. You know what I mean? So I take it back to this kid's highlights. Sometimes when people see highlights of returns on there, they never think about stuff like that. If it's not dynamic enough for them or if they're not taking it back for touchdowns and things like that, yes, that's what you want. That matters. That moves the needle a ton. But when it gets right down to it, like this kid's this is a sophomore highlights. Let's say fast forward to when he's a senior, and now he's maybe got some punts on there as well, and his kickoffs. He's got a couple of dynamic kickoffs on there. If it comes down to him and another kid that are very similar, you know what I mean? They're going to take the guy that's got the return ability, and that has some experience catching some balls. You know what I mean? So that's why I wanted to make that reference with the two kickoff returns there at the end. It's not always about them going 100 yards for a touchdown.
Right.
Is my point. So,
So anyway,
um,
a couple questions though that I have that I know some of our audience members might have. Right. One is like, he's a two-way player, right? And a question we get all the time, right, is do we create two tapes? Do we have the plays
right.
intertwine with each other? And obviously as part of our evaluations of the players, I'll let you answer this, Brian, but as part of our evaluations, this what we do in this video is kind of like a big picture overview. We don't do a video like this for every player we evaluate, right? And so in our evaluations, we tell players where to move plays around, and we let them know what divisions they're at right now, so they're targeting the right schools and going to the right camps. And then we also share with them what they need to show on film to get to the next level, which is probably the most important of all of it. But for this scenario, these are questions that parents may have, especially two-way players. I will say that every player is different, right? Some players may have two tapes. Some players we might stack one position to the other. Some players you might intertwine a little bit. But for this particular player, Brian, what do you feel like is his best move based on the context of his size, what
Yeah.
grade he's in, all that matters to the best answer here. But what are your thoughts
Yeah.
on that for him?
If you're the parent of a high school football player who wants to earn a college football scholarship and your son is struggling with marketing himself or confidently communicating with college coaches, I wrote this book specifically for you. Inside it, I share exactly how I earned a Division I football scholarship in the SEC at just 5'7" and 150 pounds, without going to camps, being ranked, and without any connections. And right now, I'd like to give you a copy completely free. All I ask is that you just cover shipping. I'll drop a link in the description below so you can grab your copy before we run out.
Yeah, good question. So since he's got about a 2-minute tape and we feel like his best trajectory going forward as a player that's kind of going to, again, move the needle more for him in recruiting is on offense. Like we felt like he looked really comfortable on offense, in the slot, getting in and out of some routes and things like that. So with this kid's year and being a two-way guy, we're having him group his offensive plays together first. And then, without getting too deep into it, like you said, we'll give him a suggestion of which ones those are, to lead off with and, stack them in there. But just for the sake of time, we're having him put his offensive plays all together in the first part of the tape, and then throw the few defensive plays he has behind that, and then his two special teams plays. Because, again, you're not talking about a egregiously long tape. I think 2 minutes is perfect for this kid. I think he did a nice job just grabbing those plays because he didn't try to do too much and put routine plays in there, and that's a problem. You know, a lot of times you get a 27 tape and you look at it and it's 5.5 minutes long, and before I ever hit play, I was like, holy smokes, this kid must be unbelievable. He's got 5.5 minutes of highlights. And then you get into it, and we end up telling him to trim it down quite a bit sometimes. Sometimes not always. I'm not saying always.
Yeah.
But I think he did a nice job putting plays on there that resonate probably with him and what he does well. So I think he did a nice job with that. So we had him group the offense, defense, and then put the 2 returns at the end, because we think his future, based on this tape right now that we have, is going to be on offense.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. Like, I mean, obviously, I'm a slot receiver. I like the quick routes and
Yeah.
getting in and out of breaks, and
Yeah.
it looks good, man. So, all right, divisions. What division does he have the best chance of getting a scholarship in?
So right now, and a couple things factored into this. Like I said, I think his size at 5'8", 5'9", between 170, 180 pounds. But obviously with 2 more years of full tape and strength training and all that stuff, and we really hit on the bigger, faster, stronger, scenario for him, which I know he'll be doing. But right now, based on the tape he has, once he gets it ordered up and things like that, we feel like Division III, like slash NAIA is a good start for him right now, heading into his junior year. One, to try to get some reps at it, try to get some momentum, have some real conversations with some coaches, get on their radar, and at least start communicating with them, so that if he gets bigger, faster, stronger, shorter area quickness, and all those things we talked about to him on his evaluation can show up next year, he's not starting from scratch, and we really feel like he can get some traction in those areas in Division III NAIA to try to get him some momentum. And that's what recruiting is a lot of times. When you're talking about like middle divisions like that, you got to get some division and get some heat going. So we feel confident, based on that and what we think his tape will look like next year. That'd be a good starting point for him.
Okay. And what about what he needs to work on to get to the next level?
Yeah, in the eval, we don't always paint it with a broad brush, but sometimes it is that simple. So, like, he needs to work on the basics, just getting bigger, faster, stronger, at that position. But we dialed in a little bit on the position specifics. At that size he currently is, now he may get bigger. He may get a lot bigger. But you have to base it on what you're seeing right now, and the size you see right now. So at that size, he needs to be pretty dynamic. Like short area quickness is going to be huge for him. Getting in and out of breaks, your foot speed, and your long speed. So at that size, you really got to be able to get open. You got to be able to be explosive. You need to be able to run. And there's guys that make a lot of plays, at that size that aren't crazy fast. I'm not saying you got to be a burner, guys. That's not what I'm saying. There's guys in the NFL right now making a lot of money run 4.6 playing slot. I'm just telling you. But when I say dynamic, I mean they're dynamic in the short area, in small spaces, in the middle of the field. You know what I mean? They're very natural pass catchers. Anytime we do an evaluation for a receiver, our prerequisite that we're going to talk about with every one of them, I don't care what their skill level is, you got to be able to catch the ball. Your ball skills have to show up. Obviously, that may sound stupid, but that is the prerequisite for playing receiver, guys. You got to catch it more than you drop it. So we always tell them to work on their ball skills, catch those jugs, get somebody to throw to you. So if those things start showing up next year, like I said, I think he can start gaining some traction in those areas, just, really being dynamic in the short area, making people miss, being able to get open in man coverage. Because in high school, you're going to get a lot of zone coverage. I don't care where you're playing or what level but you just probably are. You're going to get a lot of zone coverage. So they have to be able to evaluate, and the way they evaluate you being able to get it is how you get in and out of breaks in zone coverage. Like if you're snapping it off and you're sharp, you know what I mean? You're putting your foot in the ground and exploding out of breaks even in zone coverage, then they got a pretty good feel for you being able to get open. And also, once you catch the ball, you making people miss once you actually have the ball in your hands can be a good indicator of you being able to get open in man coverage or on press coverage, and things like that. So that's why those things matter, even if they're not playing man coverage, which we talked about with them.
Awesome. All right, cool. Anything else that you want to share that might be helpful for a parent that's watching this?
No, I think we covered it on the two-way player situation. That's why I said it comes up a lot. And I will address what that you did mention. So you're absolutely right. Every player is different, right? That's a two-way player. I'll give an example of a kid we're working with right now is a good two-way player. He's got good tape. Good tape on both sides of the ball. And in the beginning, we did something very similar with him that we did with this kid. Now, the kid we're working with is a 26, so he's getting ready to play his senior year. But we had him group, his offensive and defensive stuff together, and we had what we thought at the time him put at the beginning the position that we thought was going to move the needle a lot for him. And end up what happening is, and it's really good that it happened this way, he was kind of getting like 50-50 interest as far as like the side of the ball. Like, you know what I mean? He talked with two coaches. Hey, we really like you at receiver or slot, you know, and then he'd get on the phone with two more coaches. Hey, we like your defensive stuff better. You know what I mean? This, that, and other. So when that started happening, to Richie's point, we had him make two separate videos.
Yeah.
Because of just the way the recruiting was going. So, like, if a guy was interested in him on defense, he could just shoot the tape over there, and he could post both of them on his X, you know what I mean, and some other things we're doing with some outreach and things like that. He could separate them, you know, so whatever one they liked the most, they could push it along to the correct coach without having, you know, the whole tape, you know, together. So we did some unique stuff like that with him. So every situation is different, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I would tell people, and that was a great point to make as far as how we coach the guys, our two-way players, on how we put together the tape, whether we split it up. So it's all, you know, situation, you know, driven.
Yeah, it really is. And so it really, context matters, age, all the factors, where you live,
Yeah.
how many offers you have, what level of play you're at, all of that matters. So, you know, whether you get a professional evaluation for us or someone else, doesn't matter to me, but it's so critical because that's how you create your camp schedule, making sure you're going to the right schools. That's how you do your outreach, your marketing. Everything stems from it. And if you don't know the right levels and what you need to do to improve, then you're really going to have an uphill battle, especially if you're just listening maybe to your high school coach or a trainer or someone that's telling you a division and then you're not, right? And then you just wasted like 3 years of your life. So really, really critical to get a professional evaluation. If you'd like us to do it, though, I'll leave a link in the description below, or you can book a call with a quick 15-minute call with our team to see if your son meets the criteria for us to do an evaluation. And if you got value from this video and you'd like to watch more videos just like it, every single week we post a podcast as well. We post a more how-to type video as well as an evaluation to give you an idea of the evaluations that we do. So we post quite a bit, so definitely consider subscribing. It means a lot to us. Only 21% of our viewers are actually subscribers, so we'd really, really appreciate it. And also for being here and being a parent that takes the time to really care about your kid. This is camp season. It's such an important time. And so, you know, I want to give you all of our scripts and our templates and everything to turn a camp invite into a scholarship offer. And I'll leave a link in the description below where you can get access to that completely free. If not, we look forward to seeing you on the next one.